The diner was alive with the hum of chatter, the clinking of coffee cups, and the golden warmth of a Sunday afternoon. Outside, motorcycles gleamed under the sunlight, lined up like loyal soldiers waiting for their riders. Inside, a woman sat quietly by the window, her hands resting gently on her swollen belly, her long brown hair damp from the drizzle outside. Her name was Lily. She was 7 months pregnant, wearing a soft gray sweater and a smile that seemed to fight against exhaustion. To anyone else, she looked like an ordinary woman grabbing lunch alone. But no one knew that Lily was the wife of one of the most respected, and feared, biker leaders in town. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for what's right, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Vibes. It helps spread stories that remind the world there's still good out there. Lily had come to the diner that day simply because she craved pancakes, the fluffy kind they served with melted butter and maple syrup. She had been feeling lonely lately. Her husband, Ryan, was on the road with his motorcycle club, delivering supplies to a nearby town hit by floods. He'd been gone for almost a week. Pregnancy was beautiful, but also heavy, physically and emotionally. She missed his voice, his laugh, the way he always kissed her forehead before leaving. She just wanted a small moment of peace, a meal that made her feel human again. She sat in the corner booth, quietly humming to herself, her fingers absent-mindedly tracing the rim of her mug. The diner staff was busy, rushing between tables. But one waiter, in particular, seemed irritated by her presence. His name was Carl. He was young, impatient, and frustrated, the kind of man who believed that life had cheated him, so he cheated kindness in return. He had been snapping at customers all morning, his temper fueled by personal troubles and a string of bad days. When he saw Lily sitting there, alone, hesitant, and looking slightly disheveled, something in him decided she was an easy target for his misplaced anger. "Coffee refill?" he asked sharply, without even looking her in the eye. She nodded softly, her voice gentle as she said, "Please, if it's not too much trouble." But something about her calm tone annoyed him even more. He muttered something under his breath, slammed the pot on her table, and the hot liquid sloshed out, spilling near her plate. She gasped, instinctively pulling her hand back to protect her belly. The room went quiet for a moment, but Carl just smirked and walked away as if nothing had happened. Lily tried to stay calm. She didn't want to make a scene. Maybe he was just having a rough day, she thought. She'd been taught to see the good in people, to offer grace even when it wasn't deserved. But when he returned to the table, his tone grew colder. "You gonna order something else or just sit there all day?" he said, tapping his pen impatiently. She smiled politely and said she was fine with her pancakes. But that only made him scoff louder, loud enough for nearby customers to hear. "Figures," he muttered. "People like you never tip anyway." The insult stung. "People like you." The words echoed in her mind. She felt her cheeks burn. Her pregnancy had made her more emotional lately, and tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them back. She was not going to cry in public. She was not going to give him that satisfaction. But when he came back a third time and carelessly tipped a glass of cold water onto her lap, pretending it was an accident, the entire diner fell silent. The water splashed across her belly, soaking her sweater and the seat. Her plate of pancakes trembled as she gasped. For a long moment, no one moved. Lily sat, frozen, her hands trembling, her eyes filling with disbelief. "Oh, my God," she whispered softly, her voice breaking. The baby kicked, startled by her heartbeat racing out of control. Carl stood there, half smiling, pretending it was an accident, though his eyes betrayed a cruel satisfaction. "Oops," he said flatly, and walked away. A man at a nearby table stood up, ready to confront him, but Lily gently raised her hand. "Please," she said weakly. "It's okay." But it wasn't okay. The humiliation cut deeper than the water could ever sting. She stood up slowly, clutching her wet sweater to her stomach, and quietly walked toward the door. The room watched her in stunned silence. Outside, the soft rumble of motorcycle engines filled the air. Ryan and his crew, the Iron Hawks, were pulling into the lot. They'd returned early. Ryan was tall, broad-shouldered, with a thick beard and a tattoo of his club's emblem across his arm. But despite his rugged appearance, he had the gentlest eyes when he looked at his wife. He saw her before she saw him, her hair wet, her eyes red, her hands trembling over her belly. Something inside him broke instantly. He rushed to her, holding her shoulders. Lily, what happened? Are you okay? Did someone? She shook her head, tears spilling over. It's nothing, she whispered. Let's just go home. But Ryan knew her too well. He turned toward the diner, his jaw tightening, the veins in his neck visible. The other bikers noticed too, the protective energy that rippled through their leader. When Ryan stepped inside, the air in the diner shifted. Conversation stopped. The sound of boots against the floor echoed like thunder. His crew followed, their leather jackets creaking, their presence commanding silence. Carl, unaware of who had just entered, smirked. Oh great, more of them, he muttered, assuming they were troublemakers. Ryan's gaze landed on him. You the one who threw water on my wife. His voice was calm, too calm. The kind that made the heart skip. The manager hurried over, pale as a sheet. Sir, I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding, he stammered. But the truth was written all over the staff's faces. Carl's smirk faltered as the reality of what he'd done sank in. Ryan didn't raise his hand or his voice. Instead, he walked over to Lily's seat, still damp from the water, and gently laid his leather jacket over it. My wife deserved respect, he said quietly. Every woman does. Even if you think no one's watching. He turned to Carl, who stood frozen, unable to speak. You didn't know who she was, Ryan said softly. But maybe that's the point. You shouldn't have to know someone to treat them right. Then he reached into his wallet, took out a $100 bill, and placed it on the table. For the meal you ruined. And for the lesson you just got for free. The entire diner was silent. Not a single biker said a word. Ryan took Lily's hand and led her out. But before leaving, he looked back one last time, his eyes full of something far deeper than anger. Next time you serve someone, he said, try serving them kindness first. Later that evening, the story spread across town. Some customers had recorded parts of it on their phones. Within hours, social media was flooded with posts about the pregnant woman and the biker's lesson in kindness. The diner's owner personally visited Lily and Ryan to apologize. Carl, the waiter, was suspended. But something unexpected happened. He showed up at their door days later, his head lowered, holding a small bouquet of flowers. He broke down in tears as he apologized, confessing that his mother had passed away a month ago, that he'd been spiraling, and that his anger had been misplaced. Lily, moved by his honesty, forgave him. She told him that forgiveness doesn't excuse bad behavior. It heals hearts. Ryan shook his hand and told him to take care of himself. Months later, Carl changed. He became one of the diner's kindest workers. He even started donating meals to single mothers in need. Lily gave birth to a healthy baby boy. And they named him Chance. Because that's what life had given them all, a second chance to be better, to be kind, to start again. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Vibes. Help us spread more real stories of compassion, courage, and humanity.